please take a moment to increase the brightness on your device for optimal viewing. Hey guys, welcome back to the Sketchy Friendler, where every day, Monday through Friday, I draw for you a picture and I tell you a story to go along with it. Today, I'm going to tell you about the time that I went backpacking in Bigfoot country. All right, so just to be a little bit clearer on what I'm doing here, if you don't know, I'm drawing in this blue pencil. It's because I like to set up all my basic shapes and forms with this blue pencil before I commit to working in regular graphite. So just bear with me. If you still can't see what I'm doing, I would suggest to you that you crank up the brightness on whatever viewing device you're watching on. And if it's too small, you're like perhaps on a cell phone, just turn your phone horizontal so that way the image will fill up your screen and it will be bigger. Anyway, so that's pretty much it. Let's go. Let's do this. So growing up, as you know, I grew up in Northern California, but every summer I would go backpacking with my family. And by backpacking, I don't mean just day pack and taking a day trip out or car camping. I mean backpacking. Like my dad, my uncle, my cousins, my dad's cousins, and my gramps, we would every summer we would get together, come from all over, so some people from out of state, and we would backpack. And that would mean we would go get all our supplies for a week or a little over a week. We would pack them up, tents, sleeping bags, food supplies, whatever else. And we would hoof it up into the mountains. And where we would go every year was in a place called the Desolation Wilderness, which is in El Dorado County. It's like on the border of Nevada and California. And I would say, just for a point of reference, it's just above Lake Tahoe. So we would go backpacking probably 7, 8 miles deep into the interior. And we always made it a point to find, or my dad and my gramps uncles uncle would find a place that was off the beaten path so that we wouldn't have to deal with other people. And it was not easy to get to. There was no clear trail. So we would take the trail up to a certain point. Like we would take, if you're familiar with the Desolation Wilderness, we would either take the Eagle Lake trailhead or the Bayview trailhead, and we would hike up into our destination. And I'm not going to give it away. I'm sure you could find it now because everybody's got GPS, but I like to keep it kind of secret because this is one of those places where there's not a lot of people, and it's better for nature. There's less people there anyway. But so we would go up there. We would. It was really exciting. Every summer, I could look forward to going on a backpacking trip, seeing all my cousins and family members, my gramps. And we we'd start off, I'd start off with my dad the night before. We'd pack all night long. And that was always exciting, just the packing part, because I knew what was coming. And some early on, when I had a dog as a little kid, we'd bring the dog up too. So that was fun. And we would then get in the car and drive on up to Lake Tahoe area, because my dad's cousins, their parents owned a cabin up there. And fun fact, it was a haunted cabin, but maybe I'll tell you that story later, maybe more towards the Halloween time. But so we would go there and we would set up. It was good because the elevation was higher, So we probably usually pull in there late at night, and we'd have a whole night and to kind of acclimate to the altitude, because I know I would get altitude sickness. I think one of my cousins would also, or my dad's cousin. So it was good for me. And we would spend the night there, and then early the next morning, the crack of dawn, we'd get up, and then we would go to the trailhead before it started getting warm, because we wanted to get as far up along the trail as possible before the sun really came up, because it got hot during the day and afternoon. And we would just start marching up into the mountains. And for me, I mean, I was a little kid, so I didn't like practice or exercise. So I think looking back, it probably would have helped, because I usually was dragging my feet, and it was never fun for me. It's always hard. And there's a lot of switchbacks, and the air is getting thinner. So like, you walk like 200 yards from the trailhead, and you're already huffing and puffing. If you're not from up there, you haven't spent a decent amount of time acclimating to the altitude. So that was always a challenge for me. But eventually, usually by mid-afternoon, we would get up there. I would say no later than 4 o'clock. We'd probably end up there, and we'd set up camp. It was a tradition that we'd go to this one lake every year, so that was fun. One thing that we would do is my gramps he had a bottle of soy sauce, and he would bury it deep enough so that it would freeze up during the winter. So every year he put a rock over it after he would bury it, and he'd pull that out, and we'd go fishing. And when we catch the fish at the end of the day, we'd cook them up, and then he'd put soy sauce on them. It was delicious. They had we'd fish all afternoon there every day. It was we usually get brook trout, sometimes rainbow, and sometimes brown trout, but mostly brook trout. And if we weren't doing that, we were probably hiking up here to the tops of these peaks. And it was cool, because I knew when we got up there was always a little bit of snow. Even though it was in the middle of the summer, there was always a little bit of snow. So we just kind of dig down into the snow to get all the dirty stuff off. And we had our metal camping cups, and we'd fill it up with snow, and then we'd mix in powdered Kool-Aid, and we had what my dad would call Sierra snow cones, because this was in the high Sierra. So that was always another fun memory that I had. And the Desolation Wilderness, it's very rocky, lots of granite. There's definitely trees, and there are areas where it's more wooded than others, especially on the way up. But it's very, they say it's desolate. That's why it's called the Desolation Wilderness. But it gets really hot there during the summer, but the water is really cold no matter what. Like, you jump into the lake there was a little island that was cool, because it was shallow enough so you could wade across, and it wasn't that far. It was just more about balancing on the rocks in the little area between the land and where the island was, so you wouldn't fall in. I mean, you fell in, it's just going to be cold, but that wasn't always necessarily fun. And it was always a really nice place where we could fish. So that it was fun, because it was a little island. Years later, my dad and I, because we stopped going. I'm sorry if I'm jumping around, but I did this from the time I was probably 4 till maybe sometime in late high school, like 17, 18. Um, and then we stopped because, well, one, people were getting older and it wasn't as it was harder to get everybody together, and kids were getting older, so their interests were kind of going in different directions. But also, a lot of the nuisance bears from, I think, from like Yosemite and other places around in the Sierra were dumping up there. So and then you started getting reports of bears ransacking people's campsites. Also, they started making making campfires illegal because of things were getting too dry, and so you had a couple of things that were working against making it as fun as it used to be, and so we stopped going. However, years later, I'm gonna say like 2015, just prior to my dad retiring and moving to Hawaii, um, my dad and I decided we were gonna train to go on a day hike up there because it's long enough to make a decent day hike. So I got probably in one of the best shape that I ever got to in my life in terms of like cardio. Like I got to the point where I knew that the hike was about 8, 9 miles tops. So I got to the point where I was hiking locally down at sea level, about 12, 13 miles. And I would wear like a day pack, and I just packed it with water and just heavy stuff. So I knew that, um, I would be able to handle hiking with less stuff going up in higher altitude. So I trained all summer, and we went, I think, in September of 2015. That was really fun. That was like we went out there, my dad and I. We hiked up in there, and you could tell that it had been discovered by more people because, again, I think it's easier for people to find um, the location with GPS and all that kind of thing. Because one of the things was nobody knew how to get to the side of the lake that we found. Like a lot of people would just stumble into finding the lake, but it would be the other side. So even if there was other people, they were across the lake and they didn't know how to get over to where we were. Because I think what they would do is they would follow a little creek, which came out on the other side of the lake, thankfully for us. Um, and So when we got out there, we marched out, got out there. It was tough, but it was surprisingly a lot easier than I remember it being because I think I was conditioned a lot better. I like deliberately trained for it, even though it wasn't as resilient. I wasn't a little kid like when I went before. I still was able to get up there better because I was in better shape. And the other thing was when we got up there. So we found it was hard. It had been a few years, so it was hard to find the path to get there. But we eventually, my dad found it, and we ended up going out there, and we went out to the island. We took our shoes off, went out to the island, and we took a nap there for a little while before we got back up on our feet and went back. But you could tell people had been there because, unfortunately, like people had like defaced some of the stuff. Like they had scraped away some of the lichen off the rocks and put their names on it. It was kind of sad. It's not how I wanted to remember it. But it was still the same place. Still looked the same. But that was a little disheartening to see that people just can't respect stuff. It always really bothers me when I see people defacing natural stuff, well, defacing anything, but like going in nature and like writing your name on something or knocking stuff down. It's like, do you realize that those things have been up for thousands, if not millions of years, and you were the one who ruined it. Nature didn't wear it away. You ruined it. it really upsets me. I don't know. That's my rant. But at any rate, I got to learn how to I am improving all the time. We're working out the kinks with setup and everything so that I have the sound correct, and hopefully we'll just get the setup and everything down to like a well-oiled machine. So at least you guys have the best picture and the best sound. But I have to be mindful about where I'm drawing, and that, I can always move this around so that my hand can be off to the side and you can see what I'm doing, because that's the main thing. Because otherwise I should just be drawing by myself, but I'm drawing for you guys. So you guys need to see what I'm doing. Yeah, now I'm off track here. So if you ever can make it up there, I know our friend Deb was visiting with her family, and they're up in the Tahoe area, and I suggested that they go up into the Desolation Wilderness. And there are some hikes that you can get to like easily, where you don't have to do backpacking. You can get up to really pretty views in a pretty short amount of time, maybe a little over 2 miles or a mile or so. But if you can get up there to the Desolation Wilderness, I highly recommend. It is just an awesome place. Completely, just for the most part, untouched, or it seems untouched. And if you like fishing, good fishing, just want peace and quiet, you can find those areas up there. But I'm going to do something funny here in a second. I'm going to do it for my buddy Sharon, because she suggested it. Here you go, Sharon. This is for you. So one of the things about this area, the Desolation Wilderness, is that supposedly it is known for being one of the stomping grounds for the big guy, Sasquatch, Bigfoot, whatever you want to call him. I never saw anything that would let me believe that he was there or not, or there was any. I'm not a disbeliever by any means. I am actually a Bigfoot, and I would describe myself as a Bigfoot enthusiast. And but I never saw anything. However, if you go to some of those Bigfoot websites, there are a lot of stories and reports that people have made about seeing this creature in this area, in the Desolation Wilderness. I do remember at nighttime, you'd hear weird sounds that you couldn't really explain and didn't really want to give a lot of thought into. But I remember one of those sounds was, you could hear off in the distance just like boulders. I don't know where they were, but just boulders sounded like they're being thrown around, not just falling, but like thrown. And I don't know what it was, but I remember my dad giving me, teasing me and says, it's probably Bigfoot. That didn't make me feel any good. And then, here's the other thing. One of the last times that we went up, we brought, my dad had gotten a dog. It was a golden retriever, and she was very much a princess. But there was one point where, in the middle of the night, we had the, the tent, and there's like the rain cover, and we had her in underneath the rain cover, just outside the zipper door for the tent. And at some point she just freaked out, and she was like jumping on the tent. She just wanted to get in, so she was trying to get inside with us. Something spooked her. I don't know what it was. Something spooked her. And so we let her in because she was going to destroy the tent if we didn't. And then she proceeded to have nightmares. She was sleeping at the top of the tent. She proceeded to have nightmares. And you know when dogs like have nightmares? Sometimes they run in their sleep. Well, she was like running on my head. She was kicking me in the head. And it's definitely the last time that she went backpacking. We used to always, when we had dogs, we'd also have them wear backpacks to bring their own food in. And we tried to put that on her, and she would just pretend like she couldn't walk. So we had to carry it for her. So that's the story today. Secret lakes in the Desolation Wilderness. Let me zoom out so you guys can see it better. I gotta fill this in more though. I don't think my drawing's clear enough for anybody to be able to tell where this is. But if you can, then great, you deserve to find it. Hopefully, though, this place will remain a secret for as long as possible. It's such a magical place, and I always will have fond memories of it. And that should do it for today. Thank you very much. Hope to see you guys soon. Thank you for hanging out. This has been fun as always. Appreciate you guys. See you next time. One more thing. Thanks, guys. Bye.